Hello, my name is Cheridy Aduviri, and this presentation is going to talk about the framework that I used for a course called Technology for Educators. Most of the students enrolled in the course were K through 12 teachers. There was one person who was going to be a university teacher. The framework was called Play, Create, Share, and Reflect, and it was created for the students, but what I realized as I was instructing the course was that I also used it as my own framework in facilitating the course. So here goes the presentation. So first off, I think it's important for us to understand the purpose of the tools that we're using. And I'm going to talk about a story here. I lived in the Federated States of Micronesia for about a year back in the 1990s, and I taught the 6th grade on a tiny little island. We didn't have a lot of resources, but my students were really excited to collaborate and communicate. So one way they did that was via a classroom newspaper. We didn't have a computer, but one student did at his home. So what they did is they wrote their newspaper, and then he went and he typed it out, and then we used a good old-fashioned ditto machine, and they made copies of it, disseminating the information to parents, and it actually turned into a larger project for the whole elementary school. They also collaborated with using snail mail with students back in the US by sending letters back and forth, and that took a lot of time, but it worked. These were ways of collaborating and communicating even on a global ways using the tools that we had available. But today we have a lot more available than just a ditto machine, many more resources. And it's important for us to, as online instructors, to at least know what some of our resources are. We don't want to become too overwhelmed with them. We want to be able to play with them, I think, first, just to get an idea of what there is and how we could possibly use them in mindful ways within our own classes. Now, in the course that I instructed, I created a toolbox for the students, and then this was one way that we took it week by week, and then we went through some of these categories so that they could see some of the tools that they had available to be using. So in order to not become overwhelmed by all of those tools and to really think about meaningful ways of applying them to their instructional setting, we had this idea of purposeful play. And I try to do this even in my own life. Here I am a few years ago in Bolivia, and all I had was a camera, and I had some fun with it. Here's my daughter, and she was holding me in one hand and my husband in the other hand. And I've been able to use that for a lot of things. But I want to, we've got so many technologies that are available to us, so many tools, that we want to make sure that we're scaffolding them and using the tools that we have with a purpose. So we wouldn't just give a kid a scissors, but we might give them the scissors with a purpose, like cut this paper, not your hair. And then when you get good at it, maybe you can cut your dad's hair. So we scaffold that. We build on to what the purpose of the use of the tools might be. Sometimes this is a little bit messy. Play can definitely be messy. This isn't me again in Bolivia, and we had an in-purpose in mind, but it was definitely messier than we intended it to be. I also like to give my students instructor models of some of my play and some of the expectations. So I play personally on my own personal blog, and I'm showing you one of the pages. Here is some of the tools that I play with, and you can tell it's messy. This is nothing like I would really like it to look. I just haven't taken the time to organize it, but it works for me, and I keep going down and down and down. You can see it's messy, yet it's play that works for me in some kind of an organized manner. But that's obviously not what I share with my students. Okay, so we want to play within the purpose, within a context of our course outcomes, and always having this idea that we're reflecting as well all along the way. So for this particular course, as we were playing with the tools, we wanted to keep what I was calling the big picture concepts in mind. And for this particular course, it was 21st century digital learning, Bloom's taxonomy, the idea that these tools could also lead to higher order thinking, and we discussed that with every tool that was used. And then there was also capstone project in mind as we were playing with these tools and reflecting on them. Okay, also, as we play, I've discovered that time is really important, and something that I continually work on trying to give the students enough of it. So I'll see if this works here. So I try to keep this in mind, and as I'm playing with the tools and trying to use them in meaningful ways in my classrooms, I want to give my students this time as well. And I find that as I reflect, it's amazing how much I'm learning along the way. Okay, so this idea of purposeful play, I think there's something to this. Okay, so once you play, you want to create something, and it's a common saying among many ed techers, but Howard Rheingold comes to mind. He has this idea of that we are producers of knowledge in today's society, not only consumers, and we do a lot of this creating. So we have a lot of choices of tools, as we've seen already in this presentation, and I think it's important to give our students some choices in that scaffolded way. So as I showed you before, the toolbox that I have, this is one way that I give them this and break it down by weeks, and it depends on what assignment. It totally depends on what assignment that that I'm giving and what those outcomes might be. And then I would never, as I said, just give them, this long list, because that would be too much. We want to narrow down some of these choices of tools that make sense to our particular outcomes and to the assignment at hand. So I try to provide these instructor models, and here is one that I provided and I put on my blog. I really like this, and I think it has potential for some of my my language courses that I teach. So basically, it's called Meograph, and you can bring. This was an older one when it first came out, and you can do a lot more than I've done. I've done with it here, but you can use with Meograph. You can use what is their motto says. You can use maps, timelines, links, and multimedia to tell stories. So I think that there's some of my assignments for my other courses that I'm going to be applying this to. And I'll just play an example that I made as I modeled this. This part of our adventure began in Oruro, Bolivia. Go to Minuteman Pizza. If you or your kid happen to throw up there, it's not because of the food. Just thank them for their generosity and great service. No, my, that's funny. All right, so you did this didn't work very well. Oh, here it goes. Now it's starting. I think it was just my connection. So you can see that you can embed YouTube videos in here to tell a story. You can put your voice over it. You can use maps. It actually started at the end. It must be the way I had it loaded. I'll go back just for the Minuteman Pizza, the amazing salt flats, great opportunities for photos, and an apology. Okay, so this is one example that I modeled for students, and I'll be using them in my class. My internet connection is wanting to be slow right now. Okay, so it's important to have those instructor mottos and give them some examples of choices. And then let the students create. Let them do their own thing as they choose. And I've been amazed by some of the things that my students created. And I'm going to show you one of them. And I think it's in part because I gave them choices and didn't tell them exactly how they had to use their creativity and time. I won't play all of it, just some of it.
All my students learn no matter what. Got language on their mind, can never get enough. And every time I ask my class questions, all my students' hands go up. And they stay there, and they stay there, and they stay there. Up, down, cause all they do is learn. Gas Skinner going in, gonna teach you all about behavior. Beef Skinner hit a drop some knowledge, cause my theory is a winner, let me tell you now. Got haters on my left and my right, but negative reinforcement, I'll shut that down. Got problems with your kids, their method theory's whack. Let me teach you how it's done, cause Skinner's got your back. You gotta reinforce the good and not the bad. See constant feedback from students, mom and dad. You want your students to know and hear the language flow. Gotta give them some verbal input, don't mimic that for show. Don't count my theory out.
Okay, so I'll stop it there, but the student did a great job with his own creativity and really focused on the outcomes of that particular assignment. And then in class, we were able to reflect on it. He was able to talk about his process and talk about the theories that his video was about and really explain that to us. So also, as the students do these creations, especially as we're working with technology, I think it's really important that we focus it on being a process, not only the product, and then continually reflect on both the process and then the end product as well. And I found that grading rubrics can help me do this too. Okay, so important that we play and then create with this purpose in mind. But then it's also equally important, I think, that we share. We've got so many communications. It's not just the Ditto machine today, but we've got so many communications and things that we can do. So one thing that I like to do is to model for students by having some type of a platform. And it depends on what class that I'm teaching, but with this particular class, I had them blogging, so I modeled with a blog, and a blog is a way that we could share the information. So here is the blog that we used in this particular course, and I frequently actually set up these types of blogs where I share the students' creations. So it's important for them to be able to share them. And you know, as I was going through this course, I started seeing this shift in my role. So for example, when they would have a discussion in Blackboard, I started seeing myself synthesizing the results of their discussion and then creating and sharing with them as well. So here's one example of that. Let me see if I can bring it up. This was a discussion that they had on Blackboard on an Ellen November video that they watched, and then I took the results of their discussion, and with the help of my kid, I used some of the tools that we were talking about in class and created this.
In the community with their schooling, you can make what they are doing in their schooling meaningful outside of class. Kids work harder when you shift the ownership to them. Teachers are more important than ever, dealing with relationships and roles in the empowerment of creating a legacy. Teach critical thinking and problem solving, not any particular technology, because they are short-term. What if all students begin to produce content of tutorial design across the curriculum? Use technology to make the world a better place. Are your students contributing to the world? Many students don't identify or control their education. Help them. Do it. Kids like to learn from other kids. If a kid is adding value to the world to make it a more fascinating place, they feel responsible for it. What if all kids get a voice? Make it happen. Focus on for critical thinking and problem solving and useful technology.
Okay, so again, I took the ideas from their conversation on Blackboard and was able to model some of the technologies and share it on this blog platform. So it was really fun, and it's kind of changed my role as the instructor as well. I did the same type of thing from another discussion that they had. They were sharing resources, and I took those resources and put them made a blog post where I kind of synthesized some of the things that they had talked about. And then we were looking at ways of sharing this information, and I tweeted it out on this hashtag that doesn't even require for you to have a Twitter account. And they were able to access all of this in one place and get a feel for what Twitter would be like if you were sharing it in education. So I saw myself and my role, or I see it as shifting when these types of technologies are used, so that I can facilitate maybe the discussions and create and share in a different way. The students also need places to share, and in this particular course, I wouldn't say that all courses should do this, but we also used a wiki to share their ideas, and I'll just bring up the wiki. Here it is, and within this wiki, let's look at the week 5 digital storytelling. When they created, they were able to put it all on one place, and they put this on the wiki themselves. And here's all their creations, and you could press on any of them. This was a fun animated video that the student made this week, and here was a voice thread, a bunch of different things, creative things that they did as they played with the technologies and thought of meaningful ways that they could use them in their final capstone project. But as you can see that, and there was also a place at the end, I don't think they did on this one, but where they could comment and they could collaborate in that way on the wiki. So it's really important, I think, that we find ways for them when they create and play, that then they take that step further and they share. And these are some of the phrases that I got from my students as they talked about their own work and their experiences sharing. So blogs and wikis, these are ways of providing authentic audiences for students and using tools such as social bookmarking. In this class we use Diego, but there's a lot of ways of sharing that information, but it also provides an authentic audience, and more I'm seeing uses in things like social media like Google Plus and Twitter. When we mindfully use these in our assignments, I think they're great ways of sharing and also keeping in mind safety and privacy and digital citizenship. And I'll also state that when I did this course wiki, it was private, so not anyone could see it. So it's important that we keep this in mind as we think of the sharing part of the course. Okay, so but it has just a fun dynamic to it. So all of this is not a linear process. It's important for us to stop and reflect on it and see the process, not only the product, and to look at the course outcomes and the content. Think about all of this, such as the four C's: critical thinking, communication, collaboration, creativity, and place it in Bloom's taxonomy. So they're not just pretty tools, but how can they be used in meaningful ways? And Kathy Schrock has some great she calls them blooming apps. So if you're not familiar with them, I suggest taking a look at that. And then I also try to remind my students that these tools and these technologies, these skills, that it goes beyond the tools and technologies, but these skills that they learn can be transferred to many different things. So I think it's important. This framework worked well for me in this course. This idea of playing, creating, sharing, and reflecting, and it just reminds me that we're not on this tiny island anymore, but we're really connected to to the larger world. And um, I think if we use this framework, we can apply some of these tools in meaningful ways on our online courses. All right, well, thanks for joining me in this presentation.